Hello, buddy. Welcome back to Just Lights. In today's video, I want to update my AM/FM radio slash light bar that you see right here. Now, this was actually the very first video I ever posted on YouTube 14 years ago when I turned this into an AM/FM radio for my shop. And the reason I did that was because when I first got the light bar, if I remember correctly, it was pretty much junk. There was a lot of stuff that was missing, broken, no good, all that kind of stuff on the inside. So the bar really wasn't good, and I didn't have any extra spare parts at the time to do any kind of repairs to it. But I wanted to do something with it. So I converted it into a radio for my shop by taking an old fake antique style radio, mounting it behind the grill, turning it into a radio, and then I also picked up some of those 110 party lights, stuck them behind there. So what I could do is I could put it up on my shelf, plug it in, have lights running, listen to some tunes and all that. But over the years, the radio itself is crapped out. It's no longer working anymore. So what I want to do is I want to convert it into a Bluetooth radio now so I can connect it to my phone and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give you a quick overview of what I did to the inside of this light bar and give you a quick explanation before I start tearing this thing apart. So this was the original radio control board right here. You see I mounted it vertically, and I had to do that because for the channel surfer right here, the way it spins, I had to be able to still make it to where I can spin it by making a custom bracket for the original piece to turn it still. Plus, I started to see it through the speaker grill. So I mounted it this way, which worked out perfectly because I fit underneath the speaker grill. The on-off switch was still attached to the circuit board right there, and the volume, I had to make my own bracket, but you see it's come loose, but it's not a big deal. I'm tearing it apart anyways. The 110 came into this little terminal block right here, which ran to all the accessories as far as the radio, the party lamps, and also to this AC wall adapter right there. And what that was for these extra LED stuff I put in here over the years. I did some white ones and some strobes just to kind of give it a little extra character, plus with the party lamps themselves. Now, how I plan to do this conversion, I'm going to use this right here. Now, I could go online and buy all the stuff I need as far as a Bluetooth receiver, a battery pack, a way of charging the battery pack, amplifier, speaker, knobs, the whole nine yards, all that good stuff. But I actually picked this thing up for only $14. And it's going to have everything I need inside there to do what I want to do. So that's a much better deal to spend $14 on that than the amount that was going to cost to buy all those individual little pieces and make everything work. So the game plan is I'm going to take that, put it in there, rework everything, and try to make this thing work again. So let's get to it. All right, so what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be stripping this thing completely down to the bare chassis for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is I want to be able to go through all the wiring and replace any wires that might need to be replaced and maybe do some rerouting of everything. The other reason is I want to make a small modification. I'll explain what that modification is. I want to kind of show you what my plan is the original rotators for a Code 3 were obviously much smaller than these right here. They were designed to only be above this line right here. So they'd only be right in this section. Then they had like these blackout covers that kept extra bleed out from going into the section right here. The problem is I'm using a much larger rotator, so my light is actually casting into that section right there. So my original plan, or what I originally did, was cover this with black electrical tape, and then at one point I put like a chrome tape on there. So this way you didn't see the light shining through here and all that kind of stuff. You only saw it up here. But now I'm losing most of my reflector. I'm only getting about this much of my reflector. Let me go ahead and plug it in and kind of show you what I'm talking about. So when you see how the light's hitting it, you see where the light is actually going right across. It's mainly hitting, like here and up here. So for me to get the full benefit of my light and my mirrors, I need to be able to see it through this portion right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape off the whole lower section right here. I'm going to paint this section with a translucent red and blue paint so I can maximize out my rotator. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little blackout cover that's going to go from here straight across to that line right there, so it doesn't bleed down into here. So when I put like maybe some strobes or something like that in there, it still looks nice and good. So, but that's the reason I got to make a quick modification. So let's go ahead and get started on that. The paint that I'll be using for this portion right here is this Duplicolor paint right here. Now you can find this stuff online or at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store. Pretty much what this paint is a translucent candy paint that you can paint over top of a lighter color. All right, so I got that portion done. Now I'm gonna make better, light blockers. I just put some cardboard in there for the moment, so you can see the difference that it's gonna make. All right, so the next step is to go ahead and start working on the radio portion. Okay, I definitely got to say I was expecting a little bit more inside that box than just that right there. You know, this little teeny circuit board right here, battery, and this little teeny speaker. You know, but at least it ain't gonna take up a whole lot of space. I mean, I guess I can't really say a whole lot for 14 bucks, I guess. But my plan was the reason I got this particular one right here is because you got the charge port, the power, and all that stuff on this little panel right here. So I can mount that panel right here. Obviously, I got to notch this all out. I'm going to put this inside here, use some epoxy it in place, and that'll make it to where I can charge it, turn it on, volume, all that stuff from right from the front there to make it easy. And I'm just going to have to notch the speaker grill a little more. Now, since I've already have holes in it from the original design, it's not in pristine condition, so it's not like I'm going to hurt it anymore, I guess. I might try to dress these other holes up, the ones I'm not using, but we'll just see how that goes. So that'll be the route that I go. I decided I'm going to go ahead and put it off to the one side instead of putting it in the center. And the reason why is because I want to kind of straddle it between two of those other holes just to help disguise it a little bit better. Plus, I think being right in the middle, right next to those other switches might look a little funny. So being off to the one side, I think is going to kind of balance out the front and make it look a little bit more symmetrical this way. All right, so I went ahead and kind of epoxied it into position using just this JB Weld plastic weld right here. So I'm going to just let that dry overnight and I'll get back to it in the morning. Okay, so I got the Bluetooth portion all working. It's doing its thing. I figured instead of trying to build a custom bracket to hold the speaker, I would just use the original housing because it already had a location for the speaker to be mounted and all that kind of stuff. Plus, it's already black, so I don't have to paint it or anything like that, so you don't see it through the grill. Got the battery mounted here, gave it a quick charge, got it all working good. Connected it to my phone real fast, so I'm going to let you hear it real quick. I'm going to play one of my own videos real quick just to avoid any kind of copyright issues, so here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Just Lights. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about this Federal Signal Jet Sonic light bar right here. Now, I've had this light bar for a little while now. I actually picked it up out of a local auction. When I picked it up, it was originally set up. But there we go. The Bluetooth portion's working, doing its thing. The next step is to start mounting all the lights, get those switches hooked up, and this one should be done. All right, so I'm pretty much about done with this light right here. And I definitely switched gears quite a bit just because things weren't working out, things weren't looking good. I wasn't liking what I was seeing and stuff like that. Let me kind of explain what happened here. When I painted this lower section right here to make it look a little bit better for the rotator and stuff like that, it really only left me this small section down here, which is only like 1.25 inches at the most. I really couldn't find anything light-wise and stuff like that that actually looked good down there and actually filled that space and kind of looked like it should. So I decided to go a little more retro with this. Kind of reminds you of like an older style light bar, like maybe like a Smith & Wesson or a Twin Sonic or something of that nature, where I ended up running the color down a little bit further. I put this aluminum tape on the bottom here so it ties into the speaker grill, so you kind of have like a polished speaker grill, and then you have this down there, so it kind of ties those pieces together. Put my rotator with the mirror closer to it here, and then it did an inboard flasher just to make it look a little bit nicer. And then I'm sure you noticed that the speaker looks different just because this one right here was the one I had in here. This was from a home entertainment, surround sound system. It sounds much better because it's kind of in a box, and just it's a better quality speaker than the one that was in there. Did have to make a custom bracket for it, but I made it so I can take this off. This is how I get to all my wires. So there we go. So you get down here to my wires. So I have my main power in. What I did is I made jumpers for these two and then jumpers for these two. So these right here are my neutral side. These are my live side. Then I have them run to my switches for the rotators and the flashers. And everything's kind of branched into that spot right there. I made it so the speaker can come off, so if I ever have to do anything with it, I can just get right to it with no problems. And obviously I got the little Bluetooth thing right here. So the next thing I got to do is put the lenses on, and I still have to cut this. I didn't want to cut this till I was completely done and ready to do so. So just in case I want to make some changes, I didn't already cut it. So let me get that cut, and we'll get everything put together, and we'll show you the finished product. Okay, so here we are. Everything's all put together, all polished, ready to go. Now I made one last little change, and that was to the little control board for the Bluetooth. I took a little bit of that chrome tape, put it over top of it, and then drew some lines on there to kind of mimic the speaker grill. So this way, at first glance, it actually doesn't really stand out as bad. And I painted the buttons red to kind of match the buttons for the lights. So it ties all the pieces together. Let's go ahead and fire it all up and show you the end result. Okay, so we're going to start off by turning some lights on first. So we're going to start with the inboard flashers. I'm going to move to the rotators. Now the whole bar in action. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and let the Bluetooth finish out the last half of this video. All right, so now we got the light portion out of the way. We're going to talk about this little Bluetooth portion real fast. Overall, this was actually kind of a fun little project. I do like the upgrade going from what it was before to what it is now. It's going to be a lot more universal, being able to hook to my phone and everything like that. The little Bluetooth control board fit inside that speaker area like really good. I was actually surprised at how well that actually fit inside there. Changing to the different speaker was a good choice just because it's a little bit more of a quality speaker than the one that came with the Bluetooth box originally. So it definitely sounds a lot better than the one that did before. Making that big change to the light bar itself, as far as the way I did the painting, I think was definitely also a good call because, like I said, without having very small space at the bottom, I wasn't going to be able to make this thing look the way I wanted it to. So doing what I did, I think makes the bar overall look much better and more appealing. It actually gives off a more of an older light bar kind of vibe, and it kind of reminds you a lot more of like the Code 3, Force 4, and XL bar, like the one you would have saw like on the Ghostbusters card, just because these do have a lot of the same shape. I mean, I know they're not identical, but they do have a little bit of that same overall profile. And with the rotators on the outside, the mirrors being more in the center now, and those inboard flashers, just looks so much nicer than it did before. So I'm actually much happier with the second rendering of this project than the original that I did. I hope you all enjoyed seeing this thing going from what it was before, which was pretty rough looking, to what you see now. But I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.